Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic Hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about the latest episode of My Adventures with Superman. It was called Most Eligible Superman. As the episode starts, Lois and Clark bump into each other at work and start to explain to each other why they didn't connect the previous night, etc. But Perry White interrupts them to tell them that they need to cover the Metropolis Most Eligible Bachelor and Bachelorette contest with Jimmy. Apparently, unbeknownst to Clark, Superman is like the prime bachelor contestant. Jimmy, meanwhile, is texting Clark to try to make up for what happened at the symposium when he sees a young, blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman wearing regular human clothes, but also an interesting bracelet, about to punch a bus square in the face, as it were, before it ostensibly runs her down. And it turns out, of course, that she's Kara ZOR-EL. And when Jimmy tells her that he works at the Daily Planet, not realizing who she is, she mistakes him for having said that he's the leader of the planet. Cat Grant has tagged along with Lois to the contest and thinks that Superman is dating one of the other contestants and wants to uncover his identity. Kara, meanwhile, sees ice cream through the window of a shop, and Jimmy gets some for her so she can try it. But while she talks like someone new to planet Earth and who's not, as they say, from around here, Jimmy, who's best friends with Superman, who is also a Kryptonian, can't figure out that she's not from Earth. When the announcer at the contest introduces all the contestants, Superman's chair is, of course, empty, so Clark, who's there as himself, has to pretend to go somewhere so that Superman can show up, because that's not suspicious at all. But what I don't understand is, why would he show up at all? Anyway, one of the other contestants is Silver St. Cloud, who's from DC Comics, and she takes an interest in Superman. And when he says he considers himself a normal guy, one of the other male contestants from Star Labs, one of the men who aligned himself with Amanda Waller at the end of last week's episode, gets up and gives him crap because he's an alien and therefore, of course, a dangerous weapon, to which Silver responds by basically telling the guy to sit down and shut it. Meanwhile, Jimmy continues to show Kara the sounds and sights of the city, which mostly revolve around food. Kat seems to think that Silver St. Cloud is the contestant that's already dating Superman, which of course upsets Lois, especially when Kat laughs at the idea of Lois dating Superman. According to Kara, as she explains to Jimmy, she apparently came to Earth of her own volition against her father's wishes, which is kind of contrary to the standard story about how Supergirl got to Earth. Jimmy takes her to meet Clark, and of course that means he's taking her to the dating contest, where of course Kara immediately sees Superman and recognizes him as a Kryptonian, and Jimmy finally realizes who she is. Of course, Superman wins the contest as the most eligible person, and Kara approaches him, but he goes off after Lois, who stormed out upset, not realizing who Kara is, even though she's wearing a Kryptonian symbol, like on her jacket. When Superman goes to see if Lois is okay, she tells him about the job offer in Gotham, and he tells her that he had set off the beacon for Kara. She tells him that she thinks she's not enough for him and questions why they're dating, just before Kara kicks down the door and approaches Superman, quite annoyed because she seems to think he's a bit of a soft lapdog instead of the warrior that she thought he was. And she offers him the chance to either help her conquer Earth or kneel before the new Kryptonian Empire, at which point she seems to envelop herself in some kind of armor and begins answering to someone called Primus, who orders her to attack Superman. So a fight ensues above Metropolis, during which Superman breaks the armor off of Kara to reveal a super cool Kryptonian bodysuit underneath. When Kara almost hurts some people, Superman discovers that he can do like a Godzilla breath thing, causing Primus, who I guess is giving Kara orders, to tell her to bring Superman to him. It turns out that Primus is either Kara's father or a hologram of her father, because she refers to him as father, which we find out after Kara manages to beat Superman down and encase him in some type of red sun-emitting sarcophagus, before she flies away with him towards the location of her father, presumably in orbit around Earth, and that's where the episode ended. So I think this is the best episode this season. It's my favorite episode this season, and I think it might be my favorite episode of the whole series, except for maybe the first couple where they were introducing the characters and the premise. As I said, I don't know why Superman would actually show up to that contest rather than like bow out respectfully, bow out gracefully, but he did, and that's a little weird. But given that, I think it set the stage for conflict between he and Lois, which you hate to see, but at the same time has to exist, right? Because that's how characters grow, through conflict. And, it furthered the narrative of this whole thing where certain elements in Metropolis or whatever are banding together to combat Superman because they think he's a threat, which again is not a new concept in Superman lore, especially considering that Lex Luthor's involved, who hates Superman. So I enjoyed that. And then there was the aspect of how Jimmy didn't know how to approach Clark or talk to Clark after he kind of sort of contributed to Lex's machinations against Superman by giving Lex advice and giving him the confidence to assert himself, which led him down the path that he went down against Superman. So he's feeling guilty. And I thought that was interesting to see because, again, this is how characters grow when conflict comes up or things come up that they don't immediately know how to handle. So that's cool. But the absolute best aspect of the episode was Kara showing up. I've been waiting for Kara to show up since episode 1. And I was surprised at the way they handled it, because the normal Supergirl lore is that she arrives on Earth after Clark, even though she'd been sent there before him to make way for him or at the same time as him to watch over him, and got knocked off course in her pod. But in this, they seemed to say that she chose to go there herself against her father's wishes, which contradicts the traditional lore. So that was interesting. And they kind of pulled a switcheroo on you, because you see her as this fish out of water at first, who seems to be just a kind person who's like trying to figure out what's going on in this new world around her. And she befriends Jimmy, and that's all charming and very, wow, reminiscent of Clark when he first, was trying to make his way in the world. But then she turns out to be this complete psycho that's on Earth to facilitate its takeover by the Kryptonian Empire, which of course doesn't exist anymore. Certainly not in any way like it did before. And she's a bad guy, which again isn't entirely different from other depictions of Supergirl in the past, where she's been on Earth and has kind of been like a brat and doesn't really fit in and is explosive around people and stuff. But what you don't normally get is the switcheroo, where she's depicted one way and then turns out to be the other thing. Normally it's one or the other. She's either docile and pleasant and golly gee, I just want to help people, or she's, oh, I'm going to own this place and to hell with these people. It's not usually both. You don't see both aspects of her personality in the same iteration. So I thought it was interesting that they did that. The fight was awesome. Her costume is awesome. And now Superman's been carted off with his powers muted. So I can't wait for next week. I can't wait to see how he's going to get out of it. I can't wait to see how Lois and Jimmy are going to try to help him. And I can't wait to see how he gets through to Kara and gets her to stop trying to take over the Earth. Because he's going to. That the real Kara is a good person. And he's going to get through to her. And then she's going to be Supergirl the way we know her. At least I think so. The poster for this season, which is the graphic behind me, kind of seems to show her in the blue suit with the red cape if you look close. So I'm wicked looking forward to that, because I really like the Supergirl character a lot, and I like her dynamic with Superman. So I'm really looking forward to next week and the rest of the season, where we're going to get to finally see her as Supergirl, hopefully before it ends. But yeah, that's really it. I thought it was a really good episode. My favorite so far, I think, of all the episodes that have come out. And I'm looking forward to next week. Of course, I'll be back to do a breakdown and review of that episode once it's released. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.